Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. I would like to welcome you all to the NBA-SBL Business Law Weekly series, which is on the Series 19 edition. And today we have an amazing lineup, which could be termed a masterclass, really, on business development. The topic of today's webinar is a fireside chat on the business development greatest hits. And we have an amazing speaker today, no other than David H. Freeman. But before I go into the introduction for David, I would like to tell you a bit about myself. My name is Aliyah Februar. I'll be your moderator today. I am a lawyer and business development professional. I manage Nubianet, a consulting firm in Lagos, which provides integrated marketing communication services to a variety of businesses in Africa and specifically startups. So it's a pleasure to be here today to moderate this session. Now, to introduce our speaker for today, David H. Freeman, JD, is a former practicing lawyer from New York, an award-winning consultant, and a two-time best-selling author. He is a member of the National Law Journal Hall of Fame and was voted the #1 business development consultant and coach in the United States for several consecutive years. For nearly 3 decades, David has trained and coached well over 10,000 lawyers in over 200 law firms worldwide. He has worked with nearly half of the AM Law 200, and he's the author and co-author of 14 books on law firm business development and leadership. He's the creator of Lawyer Book Builder, which I'm happy to have participated in. And it's an online self-study program that shows lawyers how to become exceptional rainmakers. So today is packed with a lot of insights and knowledge for the lucky participants today. Before I go into further details on how the webinar is going to unfold, please feel free to put your comments in the comment box. There's a chat box there for you to ask questions. Type in your questions kindly, and we'll get to the ones that we can today. If not, we would have to find a way to send the answers to you. I would like to hand over now to David H. Freeman, who's ready to proceed.
Okay.
Thank you for joining us today, David.
Thank you, Ali. Really great to be here. Let me get my screen shared here. Get everything ready to go. Okay. So, as Ali said, this topic, what I've tried to do here is to pack like 30 years worth of what I've learned working with well over 10,000 lawyers into an hour program. Of course, I can't give you everything, but I do want to give you the highlights of some of the techniques that I've seen lawyers use that have made them really, really effective rainmakers. So let's get started here. And first thing, I want to have you interact with me. And so let's get you to get into the chat and to answer this question. If you were going to rate your enjoyment of business development on a scale of 0, I absolutely hate it, to 10, I absolutely love it, can you please put in the chat your number? Let me pull up the chat here to see. Okay. So this is an exercise where I want everybody to share a little bit about what your thoughts are. All right. We've got a 10. I love it. We've got an 8. We've got some 5 in here. So we're seeing some people that are all across the board. I think and clearly across the board, we've got the 10, we've got the 1. So hopefully for you who are at a 10, you love it, then you might find some ways to really help support and come up with yet another way that can really resonate with you. For those of you in the lower numbers, maybe we could find something where you don't love it, but wow, that's a new idea and I could do that. And that's part of what this is. As you know, if you don't like doing something, you're not going to really want to do it. So part of the game of being a good rainmaker is to try to find some things that you actually like and enjoy. So thank you for that feedback. And let's get going in here. So the first thing to take a look at here is what I call the mindset of a rainmaker. And it's kind of interesting to look at it. I playfully say that lawyers very often tie themselves up in knots, all the reasons why they would not do something. And so, this is an issue that a lot of lawyers face. And so we want to figure out a way that you can overcome your own personal knots. And they could be coming in a lot of different ways. It could be, well, I just don't even know what to do to be able to get out there and to meet more clients. At a session yesterday, one of the things that was brought up was, I don't want to look desperate. I don't want to look salesy. I don't want to be pushy. All of these things go on in our mind. And often what happens is it becomes a brick wall. And therefore, we don't go and try something because our first mindset is, oh, I can't or I won't. So then you don't. So what I suggest is to do something, I call it the 30-second rule. It's worked beautifully for me. It's worked really well for a lot of the folks that I coach. And basically it's this. I want you to notice when you have a voice in your head that says, no, I can't, I won't, I don't have a good reason. And then stop and say, well, let me take about 30 seconds and think through every approach that I can about how I might be able to do it. And that just opens up a whole different range, because now you've allowed yourself to start to brainstorm. And I see it time and again that opens up the door to great work. Part of what I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you a lot of techniques you can apply in this 30-second rule. Those of you who are at a 10, you probably have a good list of things you can do. But this is a critical go, no go moment right here, is to have the mindset of a rainmaker, which is to try to figure it out. The other thing I want you to think about is, especially those of you who are at the lower numbers, can you turn yourself around in a day? Probably not. So let's go incremental. Can you just do a little bit more than you've done before? And also, can you just do it a little bit better? And if you just get incrementally better over time, then a year from now, you're going to be a lot better and doing a lot more than you did starting today. Now let's talk about you, your brand, how you stand out in the world. What makes you, you as compared to all the other lawyers that do what you do for a living? And I like to have reframes. And so I want you to think about this as your clients, your fans, they're out there. They want to work with you. They just don't know you're there. Or if they do know you're there, they may not know enough about you to be able to make a good decision. And the about you part, it's broken up into two parts. One part, your technical skills as a lawyer. Well, that's a battle you're fighting against a lot of other lawyers who are probably equally as good as you are. But then there's the other part, the you, your personality, your characteristics, your work ethic, the experience of working with you. So if we split those two things, your brand is really made up of two very important elements. So let's take a look. If we go to the blackboard here, let's write down what we think are some of the really important elements that make up your personal brand. First, you have to tell your story. What makes you, you? What differentiates you from other lawyers who do what you do for a living? Then you've got to find the right people to talk to. And I find sometimes that lawyers will often go to bar association meetings and they'll network there, but there's never going to be really any work for them. So while you're having a networking event, you've got to make sure you're working with the people and mingling and building rapport with the right audiences, the ones that can hire you or the ones that can refer you. And then, unfortunately, I wish it was true that you could meet somebody once and you will stay indelibly etched in their mind forever. But the reality is we have to stay visible over and over and over. So people start to get used to seeing our name as the one associated with the practice when that may come to their mind. So if you do all of these things, this is how you can get hired. Now, let's take a look at what makes you a champion in the mind of those who are looking for someone like you. Let me break this into two parts. The first part is about what makes you different than other lawyers that you are competing against. And then also, let's look at what makes you similar to the kinds of clients that might be attracted to you, because people have a tendency to want to work with people that they are comfortable with, that they have things in common with. And then here on the top, where you see it says personal brand, internal and external, for those of you who are in a firm of any size, you have an internal brand. There's a reason why people might come to you to say, hey, can you work on this? Because you have both the skills and the personality characteristics that people are attracted to wanting to work with. So these apply both internally and externally. And I want you to make sure you're thinking about that you've got an internal brand, because sometimes we take that for granted. So some elements on what makes you different. One is maybe you worked in government, or you worked in a certain industry, certain work backgrounds that make you stand out. I often see this with intellectual property lawyers, where they'll have a background in chemical engineering or mechanical engineering, or things that are very specific that clients can say, you get me, I understand you, and you can be standing out from others who don't have that credential. Maybe you are one of the rare few where you've got a certain kind of practice that very few other people have. All right, that's something to let the world know about. Maybe you're somebody who is just really well connected. That can be a great asset for clients. I remember doing a retreat for a firm many years ago, and a partner got up and he said to the room of about 150 lawyers, I want you all to know that I have connections with just about everybody in our state government. So if you have clients that need to meet anybody in the government, come to me and I can broker the introduction. So it's interesting. I said to the room, please raise your hand, everybody who knew that this existed. Nobody raised their hand. So there's a lot of things that we bring to the table that nobody else knows. Maybe you're somebody who is very prolific with the newest and hottest area in your area of law, and you are writing about it, you are speaking about it. That is a differentiator. That makes you famous out there in front of the people that you're trying to influence. Also, maybe you have a different way of practicing than others do. This is a very powerful differentiator. And so if you do, then you want to wrap a campaign around it and let the world know about this different way. It also becomes a great way to start to meet new people, to have a conversation around something like, hi, I'd really like to chat with you because we have a new way of doing whatever, and we thought you might be interested in learning about it. There are a lot of clients out there that are not necessarily happy with how things are going now, and a new, innovative, different way could be very attractive to them. Now, it's interesting, as it was mentioned earlier, I've trained and coached well over 10,000 lawyers. And with the lawyers I've coached, just about everyone thinks they deliver better service than the average lawyer. Well, statistically, that's kind of impossible over 10,000 lawyers. There's got to be an average in there somewhere. So there's a bit of a disconnect around what we believe is really exceptional service and what the client believes is exceptional service. So if you are truly someone that does things at a much higher level, then yes, put stories like that in your bio. People will start talking about it, but let people know that this is something, because that's one of the main reasons why lawyers get fired, is because they're not responsive. It's not a good level of service, even though they're getting a reasonably good technical result. Also, maybe you are someone who is a cost-effective lawyer. And if that's it, that is, again, another story that's very important to get out there, because there are clients that you're looking to attract that are very cost sensitive. Tell that story. Let's go to the similar side. So again, maybe you had certain jobs that were like what other people had. And so people, again, they resonate with those who they understand. They don't want to teach you their business and industry. But if you can walk that talk and know the jargon, it creates rapport and comfort very quickly. I know this happens a lot in the US, so I don't know if it's where you are, but it's very funny how people get very comfortable with people who went to their schools, who grew up in the same area. These little things are things that can push people over the top to make them a little bit more comfortable to work with you. And again, as I mentioned earlier, personality. If you are someone who has a really good personality, people really like working with you, then you need to get out in front of as many people as possible. There was someone that I was just talking to yesterday. I was coaching her, and she's a tax lawyer. She's got a great personality. And we joked that that's a bit of an anomaly. IP lawyers, tax lawyers, they tend to be a little bit more introverted and reserved. But she had this very bubbly, great personality. And I was like, let's get you out in front of as many people as possible, because that will differentiate you. Languages, if you speak languages, other languages, put it in there. Diversity. In the US, this is huge right now. And so this, I don't know how it is in your country, but diversity is a very, very big initiative. And if that is important, then again, work with that. Personal interests. What I often see in bios is a last paragraph that says, David also, and then talks a bit about personal life. One lawyer, he was great. He said, Jim also likes to eat his way around the world. So that was, he's a foodie and he travels. Okay, that painted a little bit of a color around him. I understand a little bit. I'm getting some personality from this. Most bios, most LinkedIn profiles are just laundry lists of what you do. And most of the time, you could take your name out and put another name in and nobody would know the difference. And then, when you're meeting with somebody, if there are some connections of family or community to create some rapport, these are things to take a look at. All right, let's dive in a little bit on the bio, because to me, the bio is the first audition that you have. And so I like to think of it as the battle of the bio. So imagine that a potential client was given your name and 2 or 3 other lawyers. What are they going to do first? They're going to look at your bio on your website. They're going to go to LinkedIn. They're going to want to get a first story. It's the first audition. How well are you auditioning? So a couple of things. Number one, again, if you can put a little bit of personality into it, if you do have a personality that can show up, write with a little bit of style in there that adds a little bit more humanity to what you're putting out there. Also, most first sentences in bios are wasted. David is a partner in the litigation group of XYZ firm. Well, I already knew that. And if you know from writing 101, that first sentence should be compelling to want to get people to come in. It's the first impression that you're making. So work on a first sentence that really brings them in a little bit more than just listing things they already know. Also, the idea of giving a person a feeling of what it would be like to work with you. So in the US, I know we can't put in direct quotes from clients, but a way around that is to do something like, clients have often said working with David is an incredibly enjoyable experience, whatever, however it works. But you can kind of do it that way, and it gives a chance to be able to say the things that clients brag about to you. You can put it in a way that feels good and elegant to you. Also, sometimes I see bios that are just a laundry list of every practice that I would hope that somebody would want to work with me on. All right, but if you could at the very least prioritize the ones you want most at the beginning, and then flesh those out a little bit. Tell some success stories around the matters that you most want to attract. And here's a bit of a formula for you. When you're telling a story, and you've heard of case studies, I've got a friend who wrote a book, Better Selling Through Storytelling. And his idea is create a case story. And the way you frame a story is, what was the problem the client had? What was the very nice solution that you applied? And then what was the fabulous outcome that they got? Problem, solution, outcome. It's the way books are written. It's the way movies are created. It's the way you tell a compelling story. Also, try to think about putting words in that are search engine optimization friendly, so that Google and other search engines, when they're sweeping around, if somebody's looking for your kind of lawyer in your geography, excuse me, my ears must be changing size these days, then put in the words that the search engines would grab onto. If you have somebody in marketing, they can help you with this. Otherwise, there are experts who can help you do this kind of analysis. Now, on the blackboard, this was the third thing. You've got to stay visible. So I want you to think about what your superpowers are. What are your strengths? Again, if you don't like doing something, you're not going to really want to do it. So maybe you're great at speaking. I've got one lawyer that I coached a few years ago. Within 5 words out of his mouth, it was so clear that he's someone you want in the front of a room. And so our strategy was, we found every place he could possibly speak, clients, industry groups, everywhere. And he got more speaking engagements from it because other people saw him and said, hey, can you come speak at our group? And he also got work from it because he had a live audition. And that's what I love about speaking. I mean, writing is great also, but what it's missing is the opportunity for someone to get a feel for you as a person. It's that other element. But still, writing, it's great. Be ubiquitous. Get out there everywhere you can be. Maybe you're somebody who's really good in one-on-one meetings or small group meetings. So maybe you could try to get on site at clients as much as possible. Potential clients, offer to do speaking, internal speaking engagements. This is a way that you can get in-house and be able to get to see. And I've seen so many opportunities where people get work because they came in and people would say, oh, by the way, do you know how to? Or do you have someone in the firm who knows how to? So there's magic in this. Some people are great at staying top of mind and not letting people slip off their calendar. Most of us are terrible at this. And I'll show you some statistics later. But this is powerful if you've got a system so that the people you collect in your career, you do not let go. Delivering extraordinary levels of service so that people brag about you internally and refer you. Maybe you're great on social media. I know one lawyer who's one of the biggest billers in his industry, and he is on LinkedIn 2 or 3 times a day. I have no idea what he has to say or that could be valuable, but clearly something is working for him. Leadership positions. Here's one of my favorites. This is a way that gives you a 2-way attack. And what I mean by this is sometimes we want to amplify our message to large groups. Being a leader, you could be putting things in newsletters. You could be introducing speakers, and a lot of people can see you at the same time. But you also want to build one-on-one relationships. So if you're in a leadership position of an association, of an industry group, it gives you permission to reach out to anybody in the group wearing the hat of the association, but then engaging in one-on-one relationship building activities. A lot of cool ways to do this. Of course, going and doing social events, having meals is a great way to stay visible with people. Also, being someone that puts people together for their mutual benefit. Fabulous way to build great rapport and for people to feel like they want to reciprocate back to you. And then similarly, maybe finding business opportunities for people. And if you can help someone make money, they feel like they want to do something back for you. All right. Let's now move into this other phase of building out your networks. And so we're going to break your networks into 2 parts. Inside your firm, if you've got a firm of any size, then you've got the lawyers in the firm. And if we break that out to another level, you've got the lawyers that are in your own practice area. You've got laterals who have recently shown up from other law firms. You've got lawyers who are in other complementary practice groups that could be really good cross-selling candidates. And then if you're in a multi-office firm, there are lawyers in other offices out there that you may not know, and they don't know you. So a matter may come up. You might be the perfect person. But if you haven't built this internal relationship, you're not going to get it. Also, if you're in a firm of size that has a marketing professional, these are people who know this is what they study every day. This is their job, is to make you as wealthy as you want to become. And so most lawyers do not tap into their marketing professionals as much as they should, even though they're the ones that can completely change the arc of your income future. But we don't take advantage of it. Now let's look externally. Of course, we've got our current clients. A lot of studies show that there's so much more work we can get from certain kinds of clients, but we're not getting it. Either they're giving us a portion of a certain practice, but we could increase that percentage if we are able to finesse that, or there may be cross-selling opportunities that we've never gone after. Also, the whole pool of people that you want to have as clients, those that know you, those that haven't met you yet. It's a huge network, a huge bucket of people out there. Now, here's another one. Clients you've worked with that you might have the opportunity to work with again. Often they completely slip off our radar. We completely forget about them, and what happens? They forget about us. And then if they happen to be a good client, a good potential client, there are a lot of other law firms that are vying for their work. So you're falling further and further out of their memory because others are showing up and trying to be visible to them. You've also got referral sources. Depending on your type of practice, it could be very fertile for you. I know in the US, intellectual property lawyers love having relationships with foreign associates so that the work can get referred into the US for them and vice versa. A lot of lawyers are not nurturing these referral networks as much as they should, but they should be nurtured as fully as your best potential clients. Friends and family. There's often a joke. Have you ever worked for friends and family? Yes. Who here has vowed never again to want to work with friends and family? All right, I get it. It could be challenging. But if we move them over and put them into the referral bucket, they may have contacts with people that you're looking to meet. So this is another network to take a look at. The media. I mean, these are folks that start with a blank page or screen every day. They need content. They need quotes. They need you. And so the savvy lawyers find the media publications that will be speaking to their potential clients and then build relationships. They feed them stories. They give them ideas. If something hot happens, they reach out. Hey, do you need a quote on that? Of course they do. So these are relationships you can build. Also, alumni. If you're in a firm of any size and lawyers have left to go in-house somewhere in government, whatever, these are potential clients for you. Also, the other definition of alumni from your law school, from university, anywhere else, these are people that are in your network. Also, opponents. I often will, when I'm doing a live training, I'll ask, has anyone ever been referred work by an opponent? Hands will go up. But we often don't keep in touch with them to remind them. So it's only just out of serendipity that they may remember you, rather than it's an effort that you're putting out to make sure they don't forget you. Passions and hobbies. Yes, some of you do something other than practice law, even though it's a very busy profession. And I know people who get work from the things they do outside of law. One person was in a running club and she got work. Another person was on an internet site for racing car drivers, and somebody mentioned something about an intellectual property issue. This person was an IP lawyer. He brought it up. He got work. Another lawyer that I worked with up in Canada was a Little League baseball coach, and he would be coaching these kids, and he'd say to the parents at the beginning of the season, this is a very short season. We're in Canada. It's cold here. So I might miss some of the things that are going on with your child, but you may hear about it. Please reach out to me at any time. And he'd give out his card. He never pitched work as a lawyer, but because he put himself in a trusted position and he created great relationships, he got work from it. Also, some of you might be part of organizations or boards. So I've seen the situation where you've joined a board, you're on it for 5 years. There are 2 to 3 people you would love to get work from. They know you're a lawyer because it's come up, but you just haven't cracked the ice. The game here to play is to come up with a reason, use the 30-second rule, and come up with a reason to say, hey, we've been in this board for a long time, but I'm really curious about, and whatever makes sense, I'd love to grab lunch with you one day. Or I'm fascinated about what you say about your company. I'd love to see how things work at your plant. Whatever is appropriate, the game is try to go from a one-to-many relationship to a one-on-one relationship. That's how you deepen the networks that you develop. All right, so for fun, let's go back into the chat here. I'll open it up. And which would you say are the highest priority networks for you that would give you the best results? Let's go back here. Which networks should you put some time into that you think would really yield something? And again, please do type, because it really helps when everybody sees what everybody else is saying. We're kind of teaching each other at the same time as I'm being the front of the Zoom guy here. So let's type in something. Which of these networks do you think would be really fertile for you to grow? LinkedIn. Yes, that's a good social media network in there. Any others? Yes, current clients, so much there. The passions and hobbies, powerful. The different groups out there. And that's why I put a chart out like this, because sometimes we don't even remember, like, for example, alumni or former client. They just kind of slip by. So we often forget. All right, thank you for that. Let's just take one example here. How might you approach some referral sources? And so first, you want to find good referral sources, those that really could feed you the right kind of clients. I remember I was working with a lawyer in Chicago, and he said he would get referrals from this insurance broker, but they were terrible referrals. And I said, did you ever teach him what you're looking for? No. Okay, well, you got to find the right people, and then you've got to educate them. But also first, let's give before looking to receive. So what can you do to be a valuable ally to these referral sources? Now, some of you, you're in a practice where you just can't refer them more. I get it. But you can do other things, like maybe you can make them more visible in front of the client base. So maybe you're putting on a webinar, invite them to co-present with you. Maybe you're writing an article, ask them for a quote or ask them to co-author it with you. Maybe they have a newsletter that goes out to their population and you'd offer to put in a little column. So many ways you can offer additional value that people will then feel like they want to give something back to you. Then, as I mentioned, you've got to train them. Make sure that they know that you're looking for this profile of a type of client. We often don't do that. And then, just like everybody else, you've got to stay top of mind with them. So to create a system where you're constantly having outreach, make sure your referral sources are on those lists as well. All right, going into this topic of service. And you notice I use the word wow. Why do I do that? Because so often I hear about client satisfaction, client service as a generic statement. But what's the standard? You know, there's so many statistics that show that satisfied clients leave. They can be wooed away by another law firm. Loyal clients, they're not going to leave. Well, what creates the loyalty? There's got to be some level of wow in there, something that makes them feel really good. And that's why I use a phrase like this, because I like to use memory aids. And so, you know, the message that I would like is that for you to think, I mean, some of you probably have had a situation where you responded really quickly to a client and they said some version of, wow, that was quick. Wow, that was fast. Wow, thank you. Something that was above their expectation. So you are being measured. Let's give them more wow. I love this phrase. We're in the people business serving coffee. How many of you think we're in the people business serving law? But if you got the people side first and thought about how can I create an experience that is different for them than when they work with other lawyers, that's going to put you in the wow zone. Another quote, always do more than you're paid for as an investment in your future. And I know younger lawyers, it's tough because they're just, you know, they got to pound out the billable hours. And so it's challenging, but you've got to think about the future. Giving more is what's going to get things back for you in the future. So let me share with you a model of kind of how to wow. And this is a 2-hour program in itself. So I'm going to just give you quick highlights here. But to me, there are 5 pillars to creating a level of trust and loyalty that's hard to break. Number 1, to really know the client's business. This is why if you have work experience in their area, they love it. But even if not, study them. Ask them to look at their strategic plan. Get on their news feeds so that you see what's happening with them. Understand the internal politics of what's going on. Understand and even ask, what can I do to help you look great inside of your organization? What can I do to help you? These are things that make a big difference. Next, being highly responsive. And some of us have standards that could be get back in 2 hours, half day, by end of day, 24 hours, whatever. Okay, for some clients that may work. But for others, after 5 minutes, they're calling law firm number 2. I know I was talking to somebody in Asia, and they said, yeah, the lawyer that gets back fastest usually wins. And it's kind of interesting, but that's a cultural phenomenon there. Same thing here, be highly responsive. So here's the game. Here's a mindset of a rainmaker. And you can't do this with everybody because you'd never practice law if you're a busy lawyer and getting a lot of inquiries. But for your A-list, the really important people, imagine that this person is sitting across from you at dinner and they ask you the question that they left a voicemail for or sent an email or a text. If you were at dinner, how long would you wait? 2 hours? 4 hours? End of day? 24 hours? Of course not. You would respond immediately. So even if you're in the middle of something pretty busy, can you at least say, hey there, I'm really in the middle of something for the next 2 hours. Can I get back to you at 3 o'clock? But if you really need me right now, I'll drop it and I can do it. Most issues are not a fire drill. They won't need you right away, but the message that you sent of how important they are, that's the experience that people want. People want to think that they are your most important client. So how you respond can get them there. Adding value, and we'll put proactive. I'll put these two together. A lot of times I see on websites, we add value. We partner with our clients. What does that look like? So I know one lawyer that would write a report at the end of a month in exactly the format the client needed, save that client 4 to 6 hours a month because it was summarized and they could just take it and send it. Little things like that. And some of these things have nothing to do with the practice of law. I remember one person who added value, and what he did is whenever he would fly to meet a client, he'd go into the airport bookstore, buy a book that he thought the client would be interested in, and brought it and said, hey, I was in the bookstore, this caught my eye, it made me think of you, here you go. Where's the client going to put the book? Probably on that credenza across from their desk, and they'll walk by it every once in a while, they'll see the title, and it will remind them of the lawyer with a smile. It's the little things that can differentiate you from others. Then also it's about managing the relationship, and this is a 3-part harmony. At the beginning, understand their expectations, ask them a lot of good questions. In the middle, how are we doing? Do you like what we're doing? Is there anything we need to do differently? You don't want to be fired slowly. And then at the end, same thing. How did we do? Is there anything you would like for us to do differently next time? You notice I'm saying next time. And then there could be a question at the end. Do you have anything else coming up? I loved working with you, and I would love to do more. You might get work with that one question that you wouldn't have gotten otherwise. All right, let's go into a piece here around knowing their business, getting feedback from clients. It is so important, and we don't do it enough. So why is it important? Well, at one firm, one of the largest 200 firms in the US, they did a study and they found that the average increase in revenue after asking for feedback from a client was 30%. The money is there. We just have to ask the right questions. And so that is part of the game that you need to play. All right, let's move into this next phase around getting meetings with clients. There is a concept in sales, not just lawyers, all across the board, called call reluctance. And it's basically, oh, I know I should make this phone call. I should reach out to them, But again, I get tied up in knots. I don't know what to do. So then it doesn't happen. So it's a call, an email, text. I don't care what your vehicle is. But the fact is, we don't reach out as much as we should because we don't have a good reason. Let me give you some examples of things that you might use as triggers to help you think of ways to do it. Some approaches. It could be as simple as this. Hey there, I was thinking about you. How you doing these days? That's simple. Now, very few people are going to think, oh, you're calling me to get work. If you truly had some kind of a relationship, then this is valuable. I remember I was at a program many, many years ago with inside lawyers and outside lawyers. And we were talking about this topic. And the outside lawyers said, well, I feel uncomfortable reaching out because isn't it just apparent the only reason I'm doing it is to get work? The inside lawyers, one of them stood up and said, well, let me tell you a different perception. Let's imagine you and I worked together on a tough litigation matter for a couple of years. We had times with our spouses together. You and I did things. We did social events. We did all this. The end of the matter is there. I paid you. I never heard from you again. I thought we had a real authentic relationship, but clearly it was a pay for play relationship. So there is the human factor. Next, many of our clients are challenged by whatever your practice is. How's that impacting you? Okay, that's being proactive, one of the pillars of service. Don't wait for them to call you. Reach out to them. Be the advisor that if you were in-house, this is what you would do. I'm wondering how your company is planning to address the new regulations on, again, a variation of the other one. Another example. I was wondering if this is a good time to review your and whatever is appropriate in your practice, if you have that. For labor and employment lawyers, it could be your employee handbook. It could be reviewing your IP portfolio. Could be reviewing your estate plan. Whatever fits, if this fits, this is another tool for you. I saw your company was in the news for blank. How's that impacting you? And the you is a two-part you. It's you, the company, and you, the individual. We're starting to get, we're in a phase here of a lot of layoffs in the US. And so it could be, I noticed that they, you're working at Facebook and they just cut 5,000 jobs yesterday. How's that impacting you? And if you can help somebody get a new job, wow, you got a friend for life. I saw a complaint was filed against your company. Do you have someone or a firm to help you with that? Lots of different ways. If you just put on your 30-second rule hat, stop and think, how can I come up with a reason to reach out? I'm a big fan of acronyms. And so I love this one. BAM FAM, book a meeting from a meeting. So you schedule a meeting. You have the meeting with the client. There was a study done years ago of 35,000 sales calls, and they found 119 factors involved in selling. The number one factor was asking good probing questions so that you can find out what their needs are. The number two factor was to get the next meeting. And so if you are having a meeting with a client or a potential client, you don't know, because it can often take many times before you're going to get work. Think about what could a logical next step be from here? Could it be, I'd be happy to review your? Could it be, there's a lawyer in the firm I think you should meet? Could it be, there are other people in your organization I could meet? Or maybe, I'd be happy to do an internal presentation on. Have these in the back of your head. Be prepared for a next step. Now, if you're asking good probing questions, then they're going to leave the breadcrumbs. They're going to give you the trail of where the next step might be. But having this BAM FAM concept in your head has your radar up, searching for what the next date might be. Now, if there's nothing, don't force it. But there is another way to deal with it. If you don't really know how things went, you can end a meeting with, hey, David, great meeting. Where do you think we should go from here? Maybe there is something in your head that you did not pull out with your probing questions. So that's good if it's kind of like up in the air, you don't know what's going on. But otherwise, see if you can come up with a reason based on what they responded to. And also, when you're having a meeting, get them talking more than you. This is why it's great to come with 3, 4, 5, 6 open-ended probing questions because you want to pull from them what their needs, issues, and opportunities are. Staying top of mind, staying visible. This is a very important topic in here because people will forget you. And I love this one. It's not your client's job to remember you. It is your obligation and responsibility to make sure they don't have the chance to forget you. This is the mindset of a rainmaker. This is why I started with this idea of the mindset, because most lawyers I know, they have the meeting, maybe they'll do one follow-up, and then they'll think, well, if they need me, they know I'm out there. Come on, they forget about you. You're really not on their radar. Have you made a really big imprint on them? Maybe not. It has to be done over and over so that you start to become the person who is at the top of their mind. For those of you who are into Hamilton, I'm a fan. I won't sing for you, so you can thank me later. But what we want is to be in the room where it's happening. And so to have techniques where you are there and seen and noticed is powerful. So let's talk about this. Let's make believe that this brain is the brain of a client that might need someone like you. Well, you want to show up and be right there, right in the front of their brain. How do you do it? You do it by offering gifts. Okay, another phrase that I like to use to make things sticky in your brain. So what are some of the gifts that you can offer to people? Well, it could be you can offer to do the on-site visit, like I mentioned earlier. You get on site. I mean, there's one managing partner who does on-site visits for feedback. And she says it's like Christmas. It's like getting gifts. There's always a piece of work that I get when I do an on-site visit. Now, I can't promise it's going to happen every time. But I remember one lawyer who was a real estate lawyer, and a client called and said, we've got a deal for you. Well, the lawyer said, great. Now, he could have said, let's deal with it on the phone. He could have said, come to my office. He could have said, let's have lunch and talk about it. But instead, he said, let me come down to your office and we'll talk about it. He goes down to the office. As he's walking down the hall, 3 other brokers stop him and say, hey, before you go, I've got a deal to talk to you about. He walked out 4 hours later with 4 deals. The magic of being on site. Sometimes clients are going through their own internal strategic planning process. And so for you to invite yourself to say that you would be available to sit in when they're doing their strategic planning, if there's a part where your practice would be valuable, it is so valuable. One managing partner got to me after I did a presentation like this, and she said she did it a month ago, and she got 3 new pieces of work that she wouldn't have gotten if she was not in the room where it was happening. Providing training. This is a great way to not only to refresh the recollection of you in front of your contact, but it cascades you out to the wider organization. So in the larger organizations, there are many decision makers. This is a way for you to get out in front of them all. Going to conferences to get leadership positions like we talked about. Be where they are. That's a way to stay top of mind and valuable. Maybe you are writing and speaking. We talked about this. Great excuse. You could reach out to somebody you never met before. If they are a great client, potential client for you, and to say something like, I'm reaching out because I've been asked to speak at the XYZ conference. I would like to bring someone from the client side in. Knowing your company and having read about you, I think you'd be a perfect candidate for this. Would you be interested? It could be great visibility for them. What's the worst that happens? Thanks, but no thanks. But you got on a radar, and then you could find 30-second rule, reasons to try to stay back in touch again. Current events. Have your news feeds turned on so that if something's happening for a client of yours, a referral source, a potential client, you see it and you could reach out and comment on it. We talked about social events. There's one lawyer I know from Los Angeles, and he had a personal measure of 9 meals a week. And his feeling was, I want to talk to these people anyway. Let's do it in person. And people eat. And he was the biggest biller in the firm. So he found either clients, potential clients, referral sources, lawyers at his firm, anybody who was valuable in his network, he would meet with. Here's one of my favorite tools. To act like you are their in-house counsel and to basically say, you know what, I would love to sit down to make sure that your legal health is in good shape. I've got this checklist, and I'd love to walk you through it. Now, if you're in a firm of size and you have multiple practice areas, the checklist can include the other practice areas. Guess what? It is a cross-selling probing tool. So powerful. And also the typical tools of newsletters, videos, podcasts, and so on and so forth. But you could probably do more. So lots of tools in your arsenal to be able to use to stay top of mind. I'm going to pass this by for a second. Let's just go into cross-selling because we're getting a little close to time here. Cross-selling is by far one of my favorite topics. My most recent best-selling book was on this, so I've got a lot of insight into this, and there's a lot of subtlety to this game. First of all, we love it because some lawyers can make money while they sleep. Others are doing work, and you get the origination credit if that's how your firm is structured. But I also want to get into nomenclature here, because remember the mindset of a rainmaker. Cross-selling. Some of us are not comfortable selling, so let's kill that word. Instead, maybe it's cross-connecting people with each other. Maybe it's cross-teaching each other what people do. Maybe it's cross-helping people. But to me, the real gift here is cross-serving, to be in service to people. That is a differentiator. Do I want to sell to my client? No, I don't want to be seen that way. Do I want to be seen as in service to my clients? Absolutely. It's still all the same behaviors that you execute, but it's just a little shift in consciousness. So when we break all this down, to me, there are three major anchors. Number one is have more lawyers inside your firm talk to each other about cross opportunities. Measure that. That is the first domino. If you get that to happen more, you manage that, more will happen. Next domino, you need to have more meetings with clients so that the clients will have the conversations and they will know what the cross practices are. Now, we wish we'd get meetings in those or we'd get work in those first meetings, but got to stay visible, got to stay top of mind, both internally in the firm. So when a lawyer in your firm has a matter that might be good for you, you're the one who pops up. And then again, for the client, they met you once. They're going to forget you. Remember the mindset. They're going to forget you unless you are unforgettable. So you've got to stay top of mind in front of that client if you're introducing the new practice. Now, what we want to do is make it easy for the relationship lawyer to make the introduction, to give you that audition. So you have to offer gifts that the relationship partner can offer to the client. So some ideas. It could be maybe you could offer some free service so they can sample you. Maybe there's some approaches that we've used. This is part going back to the innovation. We have some innovative ways of doing things that maybe your other law firms aren't doing. That's a gift to talk to them about. Maybe you're happy to do a review or audit of their whatever. Maybe you could offer visibility that you're looking for somebody on a panel or you're looking to write an article. Maybe they've been sued and you can offer a preliminary opinion. That's a gift that can be offered. Maybe you can offer to teach. And also, maybe you can offer for them to join a group, or maybe you can even start a group with people like them. Again, you wear your 30-second hat and you're going to think of things now that you've got lists of techniques on how you can offer up gifts so other lawyers are comfortable introducing you. Because your first sale is to the lawyers in your own firm. Because they don't want to look like salespeople to bring you in. They want to look like service people. And these 7 are some examples of the way you can look good that way. All right. This is bringing it home. All of this is worthless if you don't have good habits. You can have the best ideas in the world, but we've got to execute. And here's an interesting statistic. They studied professional services providers, and they found that 2/3 of them did not follow up on their leads. 2/3 of the leads that are collected over a career of your career, let's say, you're not following up on. And so all that money is slipping through your fingers. So what you need to do is create systems to guarantee that you will remember to do what you need to do. So it could be, write it on your calendar. You spoke to this person today, 3 months from now. Write it in with a little note to remind yourself of the reason. Also, hire yourself. Schedule time on your calendar with yourself. This is one way that you will remember. But that may not be enough. You need to put together watchers, people who will keep you accountable. So maybe it's a buddy, another lawyer in the firm, your spouse, a friend. I don't care who it is, but someone to hold you accountable. Groups. If you're in a firm of size, form accountability groups. That can be a way to make sure you're all getting it done. Some people will use their practice assistant to remind them, schedule lunches for them, lots of different techniques. And then if you have a marketing and business development team, these are people you can meet with. So in summary, let's break this all down to the most important things. Number one, you got to think correctly. Number two, you need tactics to be able to execute. And number three, you need a system, a set of habits so that this will not fall off your plate. All right. What I'm sharing here is I have these weekly tips. They're actually twice a week. And if you care that you would like to get little nudges from me, then put your phone up to the QR code. You'll be able to sign up. And you see, this is an example of one on the left. Very quick. This is it. Just little quick reminders on what to do. So what I do is on Monday, I send this out. On Friday, I send it out again with a little bit of guilt. Did you do it? So that I'm reminding you, just like if I was a live coach, I would be checking in on you. And then the last thing, Ali mentioned this at the beginning. COVID was terrible, but it gave me a window of time. And I got a chance to create a digital version of myself. And so what I did is I created an online course, an online program that covers what we talked about today, but much more fully. And so what I'm doing is my gift to you is that we're going to do a quick drawing. Rex is going to randomly look at the names and pick somebody, and you will win access to the course. And then Rex, if you can send me the email communication afterward for who it is, then I'll reach out and be able to do that. So Rex, if you can use the magic finger and pick somebody, that would be great. Could you let us know who that is?
Okay, I'll do that just right now.
Thank you. Such drama. All right, who do we have, Rex?
Okay, so I want to be a little bit biased towards the female side. So I'm just going to pick a female. Sorry, my male folks. I'm really sorry on this one. So there's a Roots or Hi Mary. I don't know if you're logged on, Roots.
Okay.
Could you just say the word in the chat, please, Roots? Thank you very much.
Okay, good. And so as this is working its way through, if anybody has any questions, throw it in the chat. There we go. Congratulations, Ruth. And so Ruth, if you could, I don't know if I'll be able to pick it up here, but Rex, do you have Ruth's email address to be able to send it to me?
Yes.
Okay,
we do.
Fabulous. Okay. Any questions anybody has? Happy to stay on a little bit. Feel free, put it in the chat. I don't know if you're able to unmute and ask a question, but whatever, I'm happy to be able to answer anything. Otherwise, I thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to share a lot of what I've learned over almost 30 years. And as you see, I like to collect a lot of tactics because tactics are where it's at. Strategies, we know we have to be visible, but it's the how. And then to me, the most important part is this last piece. Develop habits. And if you could have systems and habits and put watchers in place to hold you accountable, that will make all the difference in your career. Okay, let's see if I can copy and paste that.
Questions in the Q&A box, David.
There are questions in the Q&A box.
Let's get over to
thank you,
Q&A. Okay. Okay.
There are a few questions.
All right, so let's go here. How much of signing and retaining clients is a soft skill versus technical skills? That's a great question. I kind of feel like the technical skills get you the meeting and the soft skills are what can get you the work. And I'm overstating a little bit, but not really. So of course you do need to express your technical capability. This is why a case story is so important when you're meeting with someone, to say things like, I had a situation that was similar to what you're talking about. Problem, solution, fabulous outcome. Be prepared with some of those stories. So you do have to technically let them know that you can nail it. But also, if you're just not showing up in a way that makes them comfortable, they may turn to somebody else. So try to create humanity and rapport and comfort and build that relationship. If you can do those two, that gives you a tremendous opportunity to succeed. Let's go. Let's see. What's the best way to deal with difficult clients, especially relatives and close friends? My facetious answer: fire them. Another way to do it is to have a bit of a feedback session. And to say, and again, ask them for feedback first, but then say something like, I'd love to have a feedback session with you. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are about working with me. And I'd like to share anything that I feel about how our relationship is going as well. Right? So you can do it softly. And there's a way of asking for feedback. So I'm going to stretch the question a little bit, but it's interesting. If you think about feedback, there's two things. What do you like about what we're doing? And then in your mind, the question becomes, what don't you like? Nobody wants to ask that, and people are uncomfortable saying it. So you can get the same answer by using different words. So what is it you would like for us or me to do differently in the future? Done differently is a much softer landing. So with relatives and close friends, it could be, I'd love to do a check-in, do some feedback, and mutually talk about what we like and what we would both want to do differently so we can make this relationship stellar. That may be a way to do it. All right, let's see. Also, how do you tackle the idea that your services may be too expensive simply because the quality of the work you deliver? I've had people tell me they're not sure about referring a job because they thought it was beneath my skills. Got it. This is a challenging one. And a number of answers in this. If you get a lot of people at that level, you don't necessarily want them if your price point is up there, and you may be hanging with the wrong crowd. If you're hanging with a group that can't afford you, then you're going to have this challenge a lot. Try to find the band of people that are your clan, that are your family, who are the family, so to speak, of those that are comfortable affording your skills because they get it. They understand a price-quality ratio, and so you don't have to fight that fight. For those, though, where you're saying too expensive, a couple of ways to play this. So what does expensive mean to you? Because people have a different point of view. Oh, your hourly rate. Well, at the end of the day, the results you're going to get at my hourly rate, you'll net out probably much better than someone who's cheaper but can't get you the quality of the result. So, ways to play that as well. And then let's see, last one, what is the follow-up process like to convert webinar attendees into clients? How do you get them to engage? I love this. So version number one can be to send out, you get the email list, and then you send out the PowerPoint in a PDF so that they get a chance to see it. Number two, you could come up with a 30-second rule idea where you look over the webinar attendees. Let's say that there's 50. You look it over, you go, there's 5 that I really want. So you zero in and you reach out, hello, thank you so much. Here's the PDF. And by the way, are my 3 favorite words, because you could change any topic. By the way, I'm curious to learn, and then come up with something. Or, I know your company, I've done some homework on your company. I noticed they have XYZ. Would it be helpful if I did an in-house presentation? Or actually, that one is just so clean for this, because you could say, well, if you appreciated the webinar, would something like this be valuable for the rest of your organization? I also have other topics on ... So it's a great way to cascade, having the excuse of the webinar to build a relationship. And then let me do one more little connected thing. A lot of you go to conferences. And so a conference is a beautiful excuse to reach out to anybody you want. If you get the list in advance, hi, I see you're going to be at the conference. I'd love to get together to talk to you about. Fill up every breakfast, lunch, and dinner. After the conference, Hi there. Noticed you went to the conference. I'm so sad we didn't get a chance to meet because I would have loved to talk to you about da da da. So the conference becomes your excuse to reach out to anybody who attended. So that's a great technique. Okay. Following up on a client can be frustrating sometimes. How do you keep it tactful? So let me assume that when you say following up with a client, meaning somebody who maybe hasn't been in touch with you and you really want to see where the next piece of work is. My mindset on this, mindset of a rainmaker, is they are saying, David, please keep reaching out. I'm just so busy, I don't respond, but please don't take it personally. And so I make believe that I'm just reaching out because they want me to when there is something of value. So if there's something in the news, something you've done with another client, hey, I was thinking about you because I saw this and it made me think, what are you doing about blah, blah, blah? Make believe they've said, please be my valuable counselor. That's one way to get yourself over it. And you know what? If they're not going to get back to you because they don't want to work with you, they'll probably let you know. But most of the time, they're just too busy and you've fallen into a B- to C list when they're very busy and they don't have time to respond. All right, please, how do we manage issues related to fee quote for new engagements? It's a good question. It's a big question because it's so varied in many different situations. If you're able to tie the fee to value and to make sure that when you're quoting something, to list all the benefits of what they're going to get out of it, to talk about the human connection side of, I'll be in touch regularly. I'll want to know what is your preferred way to stay in touch. I'll write reports and whatever it is, you're adding more value on top of what they're just seeing as a sheer number. Describe what the process will look like so that, it could be something like, and I know that for immigration lawyers, this is often an issue where it's a lot of work at the beginning and then months and months of dead silence. And so to manage what it would look like to be working with you is a way to do it. And I mean, it gets to be very specific for each different kind of matter. So it's hard for me to give a very specific answer, but just load up the value as much as possible. So people feel like, wow, the experience of working with this lawyer, because I probably have 2 or 3 other quotes. If you're being reasonable in your quote, try to show that you're giving more than others. All right, let's see, here we go. Miss the points under guarantee system. Calendar, schedule time, buddy. Let's share that slide again. And we'll go back. There we go. All right, folks. Well, it's truly, truly, truly been a pleasure. I really enjoyed it. I hope you got value out of this. And if I can help in any way, feel free. We may do a follow-up with you to let you know more about the Lawyer Book Builder program, because there's a special offer that I can make on it to you because being part of this association. So there we go. You see that I have an approach for being able to follow up. All right, folks.
Thank you, David.
Thank you for everything.
So much. Thank you
right.
so much for that insightful session. And for everyone who joined, thank you so much. I'm sure you learned a whole lot from the session so far. So any further feedback can be sent to you through the proper channels of the SBL. Yes. And it's truly been a pleasure. Thank you so much, David.
My pleasure. Okay, take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.